Alright, so here we have the LT105 micro brush quadcopter. This was sent in by GearBest for review, so thanks to GearBest for sending this for review. This one is pretty much similar to all the other micro brush quadcopters that have been becoming pretty popular. The smaller QX80 and QX90 pretty much has the same components. F3 Evo based FC and 5.8 25 milliwatt integrated camera and VTX, and also circular polarized antenna, 8.5 by 20 brush motors. Also works on 1S carbon fiber frame, so it's pretty similar to the other one. The only difference is that the motor to motor dimension is slightly larger, so this is gonna have a little bit larger footprint than the other quads, the QX80 and QX90. So this is what comes in the package. They give you two sets of props. These are the 60mm props, a whole bunch of rubber bands for securing the battery and the camera and the FC. Comes with two 600 milliamp hour 25C batteries. Wish they were 35C, but I guess that'll do. Comes with the similar instructions, which are useful because they include the pinout for the FC. So this comes in handy if you want to add a buzzer, and also when you flash it you need to know where the boot pins are, and also you also want to make sure that it's in 1S or 2S mode right here on these pads. And if you want to use a Spectrum receiver, here's the 3.3 volt output, and also you have your UART 1 and 2 to connect your receiver either via S-Bus or PPM, which I don't think anybody uses that anymore. That's the top plate that goes right there, and they also give you this it's a 1S to 2S adapter, so you can charge this on a 2S charger. Okay, so basically one of the things that I always like to do with these micro quadcopters is protecting the camera and VTX. Basically, I like to shrink wrap it, because in a crash you may end up moving, you may end up moving or dislodging the camera, and you may end up shorting it. Carbon fiber is conductive, so if this dislodges and it's still powered, and somehow you end up touching the carbon fiber like that, you may actually short it and ruin it. So I always like to shrink wrap it as best as possible, or if you have a conformal coating, that also works pretty good, It's a silicon conformal coating. This one also creates a layer that may help prevent shorts. This is not as guaranteed to prevent shorts as is shrink wrapping it. So if you actually do both, it will be even better. I'm just a little bit paranoid about, when you crash and things just happen. It just hits the right way, dislodges, and then you short circuit it, and then you ruin the camera. I know of a few people that has happened, so it's always good to do. Other thing that I'm thinking of doing is if you fly on grass, it's not much of an issue to grind the wires on anything abrasive. But if you fly on concrete or any rough surfaces, gravel or any of that, when you crash, you may start grinding these wires, or they may actually rip eventually. So I'm thinking of maybe putting a little blob of hot glue right there on each of the motors. So that should help prevent any grinding there and save also the wires. So I'll be wrapping this in shrink wrap and installing the receiver. I'm thinking of trying this new Furious FPV FR Sky receiver. So I got this one from a store here in the US. I think it's called Heli RC something, I forget. So this was on sale for about, I think I got it for about 18 bucks or $20, something like that. So the Furious FPV stuff works pretty well, so I'm hoping this one will work pretty good. I don't need a whole bunch of range for flying this, but it'd be nice to have enough range to go behind trees and behind the occasional obstacle. So we'll see how this performs. This one runs on S-Bus and it's supposed to have telemetry, so not sure. We'll give that a try. So it's pretty tiny, so that's an advantage. You can see, quite small. Pretty small, about 15.3 millimeters by 13.7, and it has hardly any thickness, just about 3.3 or so, 3.5. So pretty small. So the channels on the camera are changed by means of these dip switches, which I'm not too impressed about. I wish they used the buttons and the different LEDs to indicate the channel and band. But I guess this is much economic to include it in the package. So it'll do, I guess. I'll just set it, and normally you don't have to change it. Well, hopefully I don't have to change it all the time, because that's a pain to have to remember all the settings. And I noticed that from the factory it comes soldered to the 5-volt output here from the board. So I imagine the whatever regulator this board has should have enough power, enough capacity to to drive this camera, so we'll see how that works. The other ones I've seen, they're hooked up directly to the battery, so I guess it should be okay. Okay, so that's the camera with shrink wrap in place. That should keep it from shorting. If in a crash it dislodges and touches the carbon fiber. So that's good practice. You can still change the channels just with a really pointy wire or like a needle. You know, you can still poke holes through the shrink wrap and change the channels. Okay, so that's the Furious FPV receiver. It's hooked up to UR3. Telemetry is hooked up to UR2. I haven't yet checked to see if this receiver is capable of sending telemetry, so I'll find out in a bit. I did move the camera power leads. I connected them direct to the battery input leads. That's how most of these micro brush quads are hooked up. Originally this was hooked up to the 5-volt rail, which I think I've read it, as I understand, it does also work from the 5-volt rail, but the other one I have works okay on the battery lead, so I just went ahead and moved it there. Also hooked up a buzzer to these two connectors here. Always good to have a buzzer because these things are so small. You can lose them in tall grass or if you crash on a bush. So the beeper should help. So that's pretty much ready to go. Oh, I also added some hot glue, just a little blob of hot glue on each motor here. That's just to protect the wires from, you know, if you crash on hard surfaces like concrete or a rock or something, it'll help, so the wire doesn't get the sheeting of the wire doesn't get ripped. So just gonna put it back together, put the propellers, and should be ready to go, I think. Once the receiver was installed and everything was put back together, it was time for a test flight. This day was a little bit windy, but not too bad. I was still getting used to the throttle response. It takes a little while to get used to the brushed motor response. It's not as quick as the brushless. But you know, once you get going, these things zip along pretty well. You do need calm winds, as they do struggle with the winds. The camera, CMOS camera, is not too bad. You're able to see a lot of detail. It's not hard to make out what every obstacle is, as you can see. But these little fuzzy things, I think I was like off by one channel or so. It's the dip switches they give you in these VTXs, the video transmitters. They're hard to figure out. I almost can never get the right channel. Anyway, the copter is durable. If you crash on grass, you know, no problem. Nothing's gonna happen to it. The props do bend a little bit,
but you know, these are cheap, so you just buy a bunch and just bring them with you. They're easy to change. uh, it's pretty fun. You know, it's fun to bring along. uh, so just find yourself a empty park and just give it a go. These are pretty fun. You can have a lot of fun going through the trees and just trying to make gap. Make it through narrow gaps. And for people that are just getting into FPV, these are probably like the best. I wish they had these back when I was learning a couple of years ago, because these fly pretty close to the larger ones as far as maneuverability. But you know, they if you crash, they don't they won't break as easily. So you'll get plenty of stick time, which is what you need. You know, you can go full acro, so you know you'll get a good sense of what it's like to fly one of the big ones. So yep, these are pretty fun little copters. Okay, so here's the rest of the flight. Just nothing extraordinary, just flying around. Uh, Still need to. It was a little bit loose, so I needed to work on the PIDs. Maybe increase my eye on the PIDs here.
Okay, so that was the flight with the LT105 micro brush quadcopter. It flew pretty well, as it should. It's got the same basic components as the QX90 and QX95. But one thing I do want to mention is that because of the 105 motor dimension, you're able to use these 65 millimeter props without having to tilt the motors or anything. They fit just perfect, and these these do give you a little bit more thrust than the ones that it comes with. As you can see, they're it's hard to see there. They're slightly longer, but they are thinner. So usually on larger props, when you have a thinner cord and longer with a narrower tip, a straight tip, what everybody calls a bullnose, it'll be a more efficient prop. So I have no way of testing amperage on these, but and I didn't fly it long. I haven't flown it long enough to compare the difference between the two. But just by experience on the larger props for larger quads, that seems to be the case. So I'm thinking this will give you slightly more thrust, possibly at about the same efficiency as that. But you'll just fly a little bit faster. So why not just give them a try? You can buy these. They're available at online. I just order them online. So anyway, hopefully you find this review helpful, and thanks for watching.